They might like that. That's funny. Let's try that one again. That's quite funny, right? Welcome back to English with Johnny, where you can learn how to speak good, proper, authentic English. Now we're going to deal with those infamous, weird, quirky, out of the blue topics. So one of those very common questions is, how often do you drink water? Now you'll be tempted to say a very positive, energetic answer, because that's what you've been trained to do. You'll be very tempted to say, oh yes, I drink lots of water. Water is fantastic and essential for life, and it's H2O and it will help us live, and I think water is essential for our daily lives. Do you see how bad that sounds? Do you see how unnatural that sounds? It's a weird question. That's not being contested. It is an odd question. It's impossible to argue against that. So what you need to do is answer this weird question in an equally natural way. How would you respond if somebody asked you that in your first language? If they asked you in Vietnamese or Chinese or French, how would you respond? I'll tell you how I would respond. If someone said to me, how often do you drink water? And I would say, well, gosh, I don't really keep track of my water consumption. I mean, generally I'm quite instinctive. I mean, when I'm thirsty, I'll just go to the fridge and grab a glass of water or a bottle of water. But I must say, when I'm doing a lot of exercise and I'm sweating a lot, I'll generally drink more. But I think, on the whole, I'm not really a huge water drinker. Then they might say, what kinds of water do you like to drink? So I would answer something like, generally I tend to stay away from tap water. Now I know that it's a bit silly and there's nothing inherently wrong with that kind of water, but for me I just prefer bottled water. It just feels more pristine and clean, and I would much rather have that peace of mind because it will make me more comfortable when I'm drinking it. And I also like to have my water very cold. I have to put it in the fridge and then pop a few ice cubes in before I drink it. I absolutely detest warm water, except if it's in tea. They might ask you about your haircut. They might say, how often do you get your haircut? Now, generally, if you're a student, your school rules are going to play a big part in how you'd answer this question. So you'd probably say, well, generally the schools in Vietnam are pretty strict with regards to one's hair, so I try to keep it smart and clean, which would involve getting it cut every 3 to 4 weeks. But sometimes, you know, life gets in the way and I'm busy, or I've got an exam and I'll have to postpone it for another couple of weeks. But generally I try not to let it go for longer than a month before I get my hair cut. Now, one of the most amusing questions, I think, because it's a situation which we've all probably been in, and it's very relatable, is, have you ever had a bad haircut experience? We've all been there, it happens to the best of us, so I'm going to share one of mine. So, when I just started secondary school, it was very fashionable in the UK to have blonde streaks put in your hair, or little blonde patches, and I was no exception to this. I begged my mum to get this done, and she went and took me, but unfortunately I just didn't have the hair for it. At the time I thought it was the coolest, but you know, a couple of days on, it didn't look as good as it did in the salon, and I thought, you know, oh, I just can't wait, you know, for it to grow out and then I can cut it and get a new style. Unfortunately, that's the problem with when you get a bad haircut. You have to live with it for a bit, and I do regret going to the hair salon for that particular style. So that was not a good experience for me, especially as a young, insecure teenage boy. So let's look at another very weird topic that would probably shock you if you hadn't watched this video before taking your test and it came up, which is plants. So they would ask you, do you keep plants at home? For me, having a plant at home is not a good idea. I mean, the position of my flat means that it doesn't get much direct sunlight, and I don't know what it is about where I live, but every time I've tried to raise a plant, it's always died. I mean, and they die very quickly. I mean, I can have the plant in the morning and it will be healthy and full of life and vibrant and green, and I can come back in the afternoon for lunch and it would already be brown, withering and dead. I don't know why plants don't like to live in my company, but I don't think it's anything that I can really change. So these days I tend to not have any plants in my house. Another question from this plant section might be, do Vietnamese people like to give each other plants as gifts? These days, plants are a very typical gift for a lot of different reasons. I mean, personally, I've been gifted a lot of plants on Teachers' Day. Students, often bring me a plant to say thank you for teaching them for the year, and I always find that an incredibly nice gesture. And now as well, when somebody moves into a new home, I think it's quite common for them to receive a plant as a gift in order to spruce up the home and make it look more natural and lively. We've reached the end of the video, so it's time for some final thoughts. With these kind of topics, they won't necessarily come up because, like I've said before, they are quite obscure and they're not your everyday topics, but it's good to be aware of them, because if they do come up and catch you off guard, that would not end well. The important thing is to stay calm, no matter how unnatural, how strange, how irrelevant to your daily life these questions are. You need to respond in a natural manner, the same way you would do in your first language. Obviously, there's far too many freaky topics to cover in one video, but if there's any strange topics that are keeping you up at night, dreading that they might come up on the exam, please put them in the comments section and I'll try and tackle them in a later video. Alright, so this is the end, guys. Remember, if you like what you see, come back and find me. Till next time.